Hi, folks. Welcome to week 3 of Educational Psychology. Hopefully, you had a good time exploring the course orientation and all the key assignment descriptions and everything, and especially lesson 1, which is my favorite, learning all about the teenage brain and how it explains everything about their bizarro behavior in your classroom. So, I love teenagers. I'm so glad you're here learning about them with me. So much fun. So, anyway, about lesson 1, I checked out the results of the quiz, the mastery quiz, and noticed that several people missed the question about what the hippocampus does. So first of all, I wanted to remind you, be sure to go through the interactives that I create, my little presentations, beyond the textbook, beyond readings and things like that. If there's an interactive that I've created, make sure you go through it, because sometimes the textbook isn't really clear about some of the concepts, and those interactives should help clear it up. So some of the confusion may have stemmed from that. If you look in the textbook, it really talks about the hippocampus being involved in long-term memory, but it is not the storage site for long-term memory. If you go through that interactive and if you think about how the brain works and how those dendrites and the neurons make connections between each other, long-term memory is stored everywhere in the brain, right? So if you have an event that you participate in, your memory of that event will have connections into the occipital lobes because you saw things, and it may have connections into the temporal lobes because you heard things, and it may have connections into the parietal lobes because you made connections to your person, who you are, and maybe you felt things on your body, that's on the parietal lobes, and maybe you did things with your body, so that's on the frontal lobes, and maybe you thought deeply about it, and that's in the frontal lobes as well. So we'd have connections all over the brain for that event and not just in the hippocampus. So hippocampus processes memory, does not save it there, okay? It just tells the rest of the brain what should be saved. Yeah, so that was the big one that I saw people missing. I am going through and regrading the open-ended ones because I know, like, if you spell it wrong or you don't word it quite exactly the way I do, that it takes off points. So I'm going back through and redoing those for you. Otherwise, just make sure as you go through the lessons, you're kind of going through page by page. You don't have to watch every single video or read every single article necessarily. I know I put too much stuff in there, but if there's a presentation that I've done, yeah, you're going to want to watch that one to make sure that you're getting the Dr. Cox version of it, like, I guess. Basically, I just try to simplify and clarify things for you in those, okay? I'm being too wordy, sorry. So this week, what you're working on is lesson 12. I know it's out of order, but that's what we're doing. It's lesson 12. It's on classroom assessment. So this is going to give you your overview of our key vocabulary for assessment that we'll be using throughout the semester on that assessment inventory. So the key terms you really need to pay attention to are reliability, validity, bias, and practicality. And I have a presentation on that for you to watch. You also should be familiar with the difference between formative and summative assessment, as those will be kind of big ideas as well. And then by the end of this week, so in other words, by Monday night, you should take a mastery quiz on these concepts. So really focus, pay attention. Remember, there are sample test questions on the conclusion page of each lesson. So if you want to practice those don't get graded, the sample test questions, but the mastery quizzes do, okay? And then the other thing you need to do this week is decide if you're going to work in a group for your assessment inventory, which I do strongly recommend. For many people, this is their first time creating assessments, and it's really tricky to make them clear and appropriate for adolescents and all this kind of stuff. So I do recommend that you work with somebody, and this is especially true if you have not or are not taking curriculum and instruction, EDSC 4550, because we're going to be working a lot with your core curriculum and making sure we're aligning things, and those are concepts that you learn in curriculum, and so these courses kind of complement each other, okay? So by the end of this week, you should send me an email letting me know there's a discussion board, sorry, letting me know who you are working with on the assessment inventory so that I can create groups on Canvas. Makes it a lot easier for you guys to turn stuff in and communicate and things like that. So that needs to happen by Monday night of this week. There isn't a traditional discussion board, so you don't need to worry about that this week. Just go through everything in lesson 12, take the mastery quiz and tell me who your group's going to be for the assessment inventory. You're also going to want to choose your core curriculum or a unit that you're going to focus your assessment inventory on. So if you're in curriculum and instruction right now, you are brainstorming units. You're doing your scoping and sequencing. So choose one of those units and let's build the assessments throughout the semester to go with that unit. It'll just make it a lot easier for you so you're not constantly having to think about which content you should make these assessments on. If you've picked a unit, we just build the assessments for that unit. Makes it really easy. Okay, so that's kind of your output for this week. Mastery quiz, discussion board to tell me who your group is going to be, and as a group, have ready what unit you're going to do the assessments for. Doesn't give one person an unfair advantage if you use their scope and sequence versus yours or anything like that, because you're all going to be teaching this stuff, and so you'll all benefit from having those assessments, at least templates for assessment that you can then replace the wording, what the content is going to be. So, all right, that's the big deal for this week. I will fix grades on Mastery Quiz 1. Please remember that the hippocampus does not store long-term memory. It's your working memory. So it processes memory, okay? And get lesson 12 done. That's where we are this week. I'm here as always, so come and say hi if you need any help or just want to know that there's a real person over here. Okay, thanks guys.